Hello and welcome to the Riyal Deal, coming to you from the Al Arabiya News headquarters. This is your weekly bulletin, bringing you all the latest business news headlines and analysis from Saudi Arabia. Coming up in today's programme, speaking to Al Arabiya News earlier on this week, the US Energy Secretary says Washington and Riyadh are on the path to an agreement to jointly develop a Saudi civil nuclear industry. On time and on budget, that is the status of the historical district of Diriyah, one of Saudi Arabia's major giga-projects. We'll be speaking in a moment to the CEO, Inzerillo. And against the backdrop of the Saudi Grand Prix in Jeddah, we ask, could the kingdom soon have a Formula One team of its own? Hello and welcome to the programme. The US Energy Secretary Chris Wright says that Washington is edging closer to a landmark energy partnership with Saudi Arabia. Well, this could pave the way for a civil nuclear industry in the kingdom. Well, Wright, who was on his first visit to Saudi Arabia as secretary, made the comments during a visit to Riyadh, where he spoke to my colleague, Hadley Gamble. Here's an excerpt.
There's been dialogues across the energy spectrum. We've talked oil, we've talked natural gas, we've talked solar, we've talked energy storage, we've talked moving water, we've talked industry, but certainly a good chunk about nuclear as well.
And you're anticipating that you'll be signing an MOU in the coming months on that?
Well, I think in the short run, we'll sign a broader agreement about cooperation across the energy space, in partnerships, in investments, in investigations. Nuclear is certainly one of those areas. To get a specific agreement to partner on commercial nuclear development in Saudi Arabia, that'll take a little bit longer. That'll be months, not weeks.
But you're going to get there.
I think it's likely we will.
Now, does that require that the Saudis sign a 1, 2, 3 agreement with the United States?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that won't happen without that agreement being signed.
Correct. Yeah, we'll need a 1, 2, 3 agreement and a broader, specific framework for how we're going to cooperate together and how things will work. But based on the discussion so far and where we stand, I think it's likely we get there.
And that was the US Energy Secretary Chris Wright speaking to my colleague Hadley Gamble. Well, I'm joined now by Ali Raza, the Chief Investment Officer at the Saudi Arabia Holding Company. Thank you very much for being with us. As ever, Ali, great to see you. The US and Saudi Arabia, it seems, are set to sign a cooperation deal to develop a civil nuclear industry. Just tell us, why is that significant?
Well, Tom, if we look at the agenda of the Vision 2030 and the way the industries have been promoted, the impact that is likely to have on the economic development of the nation, the theme seems to be quite recurring. We want to build things in Saudi Arabia, use them in Saudi Arabia, export them. And in this particular subject, the only addition is the fact that Saudi Arabia also wants to use sustainable and renewable energy. Now, not many people know this, but around 1 to 4% of the world's uranium is actually estimated to be in Saudi Arabia. So it goes without saying that there is a desire or intention to mine, develop, use this for the purpose of local benefit, and then distribute to the world as and where required. Now, earlier this year in Davos, actually, the Minister of Energy, His Excellency Al-Jubair, he said quite clearly that Saudi Arabia would like to mine the material, run the beneficiation process, run the downstream, and extract the maximum value from the resource. So this is, of course, a significant deal because it's the creation of an entire industry, much like the others have been promoted under Vision 2030.
Okay, what's the incentive financially for Saudi Arabia to engage in this program? Because there are going to be some pretty significant one-off startup costs, aren't there?
Of course. I mean, there are startup costs without getting into the specific numbers. Which industry doesn't bring with it significant capex or opex, especially in the early stages. However, we've got to model out what the impact is on the economy, what it represents as a percentage of GDP, what it would represent as a mature industry once we add another source of energy to the energy mix. So the costs, of course, they're relative and the appropriate teams and stakeholders will be evaluating these, but the net benefit is positive because it adds to the energy mix of a nation that's traditionally an energy nation.
Okay, so as we've been saying, this ties in very neatly with Vision 2030. Just tell us briefly, what happens next?
So we can speculate at this stage. I mean, as the Minister of Energy from the US shared, it's likely that there would be a deal upcoming on the horizon. As we understand it, there's a number of discussions and negotiations that need to take place. And the expectation, at least on some fronts, is that we would see some form of deal in the near future. And I suspect, it's expected that Donald Trump will be visiting Saudi Arabia as one of his first destinations to visit. If we are speculating, I wouldn't be surprised if we see something come together by this point in time.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for that, Ali. Ali Raza will be with you again a little bit later on in the show. Let's take a quick look now at some of the other business news stories in the kingdom. And companies are continuing to launch IPOs despite volatility in the global markets. The latest firm looking to list is Jeddah-based coffee chain Barnes. That's according to a Bloomberg report citing the company's CEO, Mohammed Al-Zain, who says that the chain is seeking expansion in the Middle East. Well, it will list on the Saudi Tadawul Stock Exchange, hoping to see at least several $100 million coming in, proceeds that will go towards the expansion plans. Saudi Arabia's space industry is expected to grow to $31.6 billion US. That's according to a new study conducted by the Saudi Space and Tech Commission. Well, last year, the country's space economy reached $8.7 billion US, while the space economy is valued at $1.9 billion. The CEO of the luxury confectioner Batil says that she is aiming to triple revenues across the company's cafe and food outlets by 2029 and grow the number of stores from 200 to 500 worldwide. Well, Batil, which has roots going back 80 years, specializes in dates stuffed with nuts or covered in chocolate. And last year, Saudi Arabia saw a 16% increase in date exports, representing more than $450 million US. The Saudi asset management industry has grown by more than 20% during the course of the past year, crossing $266 billion US in assets under management for the first time. That's according to the credit rating agency Fitch. Well, the industry is likely to attract steady inflows for the 2025-26 year, with managed assets to surpass the $350 billion mark, according to that report. A growing investor base, favorable demographics, ongoing reforms, and strong capital markets are among the key reasons for that trend. And electronic payments accounted for 79% of all retail purchases in Saudi Arabia in 2024. The Saudi Central Bank announcing the number of non-cash transactions reached 12.6 billion last year. That's up from 10.8 billion transactions in 2023. Now, national heritage and tourism are central pillars of Vision 2030, and the kingdom is targeting 150 million tourists by the year 2030. Well, the Diriyah Cultural Heritage Project on the edge of Riyadh is one of Saudi Arabia's so-called giga-projects and has a UNESCO World Heritage Site at its core. Well, also known as the City of Earth, Diriyah is a $64 billion project, which is on track to be a 14 square kilometre city. With dozens of hotels and restaurants. Well, on time and on budget, the project has secured hundreds of millions of dollars in foreign investments. Well, we're going to speak now to Jerry Inzerillo, the Group CEO of Diriyah Company. Thank you very much indeed for making the time to speak to us. We really appreciate it. We know you've got a very busy schedule. You've got a career that spanned more than 50 years. You've been working for Diriyah for 7 years. Just tell us a bit about how you ended up there.
Well, it's, everything in life is episodal, especially when you've had a long career like I have. And I was very fortunate because as a young man, I had great Saudi friends. I've worked in the Middle East quite extensively over the last 30 years with One and Only and Royal Mirage in Dubai and Atlantis. So I knew the region very well, had a lot of Saudi friends, been coming back and forth to the kingdom since the 1980s. But my other company, Forbes Travel Guide, which gives the 5-star out to hotels, has a very robust global training division. And we did quite a bit of training in the kingdom. So I had a chance to read Vision 2030 when it was first released, and I was thrilled on the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman, and our great Prime Minister, the Crown Prince, vision to include tourism into Vision 2030. And Arabia loved the country, loved the Saudis. So when I was approached and met His Royal Highness, and he knew that I knew Diriyah, he said, "Look, would you help us on this journey?" And I just thought it was one of these opportunities once in a lifetime. And here we are 7 years later.
Okay, I mean, it sounds like an absolutely amazing project. So clearly, tourism is a major focus for Vision 2030. Where does heritage fit in?
Well, there's two things, and that is that, you know, everybody rejoices when we celebrate National Day on September 23rd. Me too. But when I got here, I understood the 300-year legacy of Diriyah, and again, custodian of the two holy mosques and the Crown Prince. One of the greatest things that's happened since I've been here is the national holiday of Founding Day on February 22nd. Now, if you move the clock ahead a little bit to February 22nd, 2027, that's the actual 300th birthday of the first Saudi state. So while we rejoice in celebrating the unification of the third Saudi state, National Day, we celebrate Founding Day. Now, why is that important? Because we're a culture very rich in heritage, very rich in history, very rich in everything that's over 300 years. So Diriyah is the birthplace of the kingdom. It's the ancestral home of Al Saud. It's the roots of the nation. It's the source of our identity, our national pride. And that's why the UNESCO site, we just finished welcome 3 million people. And this is on our way to welcoming 27 million people by 2030.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you whether there is indeed involvement from the very top on a day-to-day level. I mean, you mentioned the Crown Prince, you mentioned other senior figures in the country. Does that manifest itself in your day-to-day role as the Diriyah Group CEO?
And that's the thing that's probably most extraordinary for most people to consider, because Saudi Arabia is a G20 country. It's in a very complex region. But the fact that the Crown Prince is the chairman of the Diriyah, all three entities, Diriyah Foundation, Diriyah DGDA, Diriyah Gate Development Authority, and the PIF company, Diriyah Company. To this day, 7 years later, he approves every rendering. If we need answers out of him, we have direct access to him. And he's involved, maybe not in the day-to-day, but he's involved in the total strategy. And, you know, now lately, we've had so many diplomatic missions coming to the kingdom. Everybody comes to Diriyah. So from His Royal Highness to Foreign Affairs, even our protocol department now, we're doing between 9 and 15 royal and ministerial protocol movements a day. So he's very involved. That's why we say there's only one Diriyah. But if you look at the national tourism strategy, he's very, very involved in that. And we've already welcomed, by December of 2024, we've already welcomed 100 million visits to the kingdom. And this will go up to 150 million visits by 2030.
Because it sounds like tourism is really taking off to Saudi Arabia, and heritage obviously playing a really central part. Tell us a bit about your ambitions for Diriyah and where you'd like to see it in a few years' time, and how you're going to turn it into a truly global landmark.
Well, again, because it represents the image of the kingdom. You know, even when the kingdom had the privilege of being the presidency for the G20 in 2020, that iconic picture that goes all over the world of all of the heads of state. Obviously, during 2020, the world was, you know, in the middle of COVID. So our presidency, which was extremely successful, was done electronically. But with that, we took the family picture of all the global leaders projected it on Salwa Palace, which is the UNESCO World Heritage Site. And that one image got over 1 billion hits, right? So the symbol of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is its birthplace, which is today the UNESCO World Heritage Site. The kingdom now has 8 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. People are coming from all over the world now to see Al Ula, our jewel, to see in Jeddah, all the others. So heritage, culture, very important because we're abundant in that. We will welcome people from all over the world. 2027 for the Asian football games. 2029, our colleagues in Trojena, our Neom city of Trojena, will welcome the full Asian games. This will be a game changer for the kingdom because most people around the world don't know that it snows in Saudi Arabia. Then we'll get ready for the brilliant, largest expo ever staged in the world in 2030. We will rejoice in us hosting the 2034 World Cup, knowing the ambitions of His Royal Highness, the capability of the kingdom, and the ambitions of His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Turki Al Faisal. I think it's only a matter of time before the kingdom can put in an Olympic bid. So it's a very exciting time. You're coming to a beautiful country with very warm, welcoming society, deep and rich culture, national heritage. So it's a great time for the kingdom.
Wow, it sounds like there's a huge amount happening. Let's go back to your project, Diriyah, and talk about where it is. Where are we with it? We're being told it's on time and on budget. In terms of what's complete, just tell us what percentage still remains to be built.
Yeah, so Deira is on time, on budget, which is remarkable for a 14 million square meter, $64 billion US project 7 years in. We just had a meeting with His Royal Highness in Jeddah a few weeks ago to report on that. Deira is complex because it's right in the middle of Riyadh, right? To do the land acquisition, demolition, infrastructure, several $1 billion of smart city infrastructure, water, power. We planted 6.5 million trees. But Deira, in terms of its amenities, we'll have 42 hotels, of which the first one is already open. We'll do a 91% occupancy at our beautiful Bob Samhan Hotel this month. We'll have over 500 retail, almost all signed, all the great luxury brands, 100 restaurants, Bajeri Terrace of 20 restaurants thriving. We'll open our new addition to that called Zalal within the next 90 days, which is going to be a great amenity. We finished 9 kilometers of parks so people can enjoy their time outside, which is a quality of life initiative. Our wonderful colleague, Jane, and her staff have put Sport Boulevard all through the UNESCO site now. So that first phase of Sport Boulevard is open. So we now, infrastructurally, land acquisition, 100% done. Demo, 90% done. Major infrastructure work, very complex, about 75% done. In the next 30 days, we will divert King Khalid Road to put a giant park on top of it. We diverted the Western Ring Road to put a giant park on top of that, which means that you can walk from the UNESCO site right into King Saud University. So with all the infrastructure, land acquisition, demo, this is very exciting because all of that's done over 75%. Now, in buildings, we can't put all the buildings until we cap off the 10 million cubic meters of infrastructure we put underground. That still will require another 18 months, right? So when we look forward, just simply to 2027, we're ready. All the hotels, the retail, all the plazas, they're all designed. We'll debut a new boulevard that's the size of the Parisian Champs-Élysées. That will have the new Kingdom of Saudi Arabia Opera House. It will have the new Kingdom of Saudi Arabia Contemporary Art Museum, the new exhibit center. It'll have a new 20,000 seat multi-purpose entertainment arena, the new King Salman Mosque, beautiful hotels and shops and galleries. So these are all designed and planned. So by 2027, you're going to see a lot of buildings coming up because we'll have the infrastructure. But DG1, 5 kilometers, the beautiful 9 kilometers of the Wadi Hanifa, Wadi Sfar, which is our Bel Air, all of that will be finished for Vision 2030 and for the Expo 2030.
I mean, everything you're saying, Jerry, makes it sound as though you're at the epicenter of perhaps the most exciting place on Earth right now. The amount of activity, the amount of ambition, the amount of energy. I mean, is that how it feels right now?
It definitely feels, and keep in mind, to my fatigue, but keep in mind that today, while there's only one Diriyah and very important, today is only one of dozens of dynamic, truly visionary projects throughout the whole kingdom. So that's why we praise His Royal Highness, because we work an 80, I work an 80-hour week, my team works an 80-hour week, and we're just one exciting development. But the national tourism structure, the diversification of industries, all of the benchmarking of Vision 2030 on time, the kingdom will be unrecognizable physically by 2030. But probably the thing that's the most dynamic, the most exciting of all of this optimism and positivity is the development of our society. All these great young Saudis, highly educated, very passionate in the workforce. 82% of my staff are Saudi, 39% Saudi women, 16% of those Saudi women fired up and in management, 14% of our staff from Diriyah. So, you know, the kingdom is going through a historic renaissance now, unilaterally, unified in positivity and optimism. And Diriyah is trying to be a major part of that positivity, but there are dozens and dozens of projects that are performing and realizing the Crown Prince's vision the same way Diriyah is.
And Jerry, you've mentioned the Opera House, which is a major, major project. When's that going to be ready?
We hope to have the Opera House ready by 28. Right now, everything's on time. You know, you never know geopolitical events and stuff like that, but the Opera House is just breathtaking. It'll be one of the most beautiful opera houses. And you know, there's a lot of beautiful opera houses in the world, but this one is just exciting. And then, thanks to the leadership and the global stature of His Highness Prince Badr, our wonderful Minister of Culture, I feel very confident that within the next few months, we'll be making a major announcement with Ministry of Culture and Deira on a great joint venture between us and one of the great opera companies in the world for a winter residency at the Opera House. But that's going to be amazing. That's what RCRC, with His Excellency Ibrahim Al Sultan, the Opera House. When you see that new Kingdom of Saudi Arabia Contemporary Art Museum, it will astound people on its beauty. Ministry of Culture in the process of curating a brilliant collection for it. That 20,000 seat performance arena, you look at the brilliant job that His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh is doing, he and his great team at the General Entertainment Authority and our entertainment division. That's going to be a hub of activity. The new King Salman Mosque, breathtaking, befitting a great king. That the exhibition center to bring people from all over the world. That's all on that boulevard. All the big luxury hotel operators, most of which have broken ground now. So there's a lot to look forward to, especially we'll have a lot of assets open by 27, but the big complex assets to be done by 28 and 29 are going to be very world-class.
I can really hear that excitement in your voice, Jerry. You know, I mean, you're really creating this hub of culture that's going to be recognized globally. You're doing it with some partners, some international firms, some European firms. Some big contracts went out last year towards the end of the year, about 1.4 billion in construction contracts. Are there more of them on the way?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, yesterday we signed a 5.1 billion SAR contract on the entire, you mentioned the Opera House, but on that, because the Opera House is more than just the Opera House, it's fabulous, but the plazas around it where people can gather, the collection of restaurants and coffee shops and art galleries and fashion houses, and in praise of the Crown Prince, which you asked earlier, we were with him in Jeddah 2 weeks ago. We built a model of this new boulevard, and he wanted to know all the street activity. We're going to go see him on the 23rd again because he's very, very focused. What will make this a great gathering place? Why will it be a hub? Why will it be a magnet? How do we attract families to come? So the street activity to make today one of the great cultural gathering places in the world is a very, very big goal. And what I'm happy about is that we don't even have these amenities now. We're just starting. And we've already welcomed 3 million people to the UNESCO World Heritage Site of At-Taref.
Jerry, one thing I just wanted to ask you, the first Saudi Arabia Sotheby's auction took place in February, and we actually covered that here at Al Arabiya News. Do you think that's the face of things to come for Diriyah in terms of the sorts of activities we can expect to be seeing there?
Yes, and we appreciate your coverage, and you did a brilliant job for us. So thank you. But this is a trickle of what is going to be coming. Because right now, you have to understand the maturity and the sophistication of the Ministry of Culture. They're hitting their groove right now. So Sotheby's, Christie's, all those type of things are not one of a dozen initiatives that are happening in the next 5 years. They're one of hundreds. If you look at what's happening now in the Ministry of Sport, they're hitting their groove. We're doing global events with regularity in the kingdom now. You look at the General Entertainment Authority, they're hitting their groove. All kinds of entertainment mediums from all over the world, people coming. I mean, Riyadh season, tens and tens of millions of people. We just finished today a season, and we're a small cultural heritage season. We had over 1 million visits, right? So now, if you look at all the different ministries, they're all fired up, but now we have the hardware behind them. You know, you look at the great work that my colleague John Pagano is doing in the Red Sea. You look at the great work that's being done in Jeddah, and Neom, and Al Ula, and in Dammam. And so everybody's hitting their groove. So by the time we get infrastructure and a lot of the hardware, the buildings in place, wow, it's going to be super exciting for 27, 28, 29, 30.
Jerry, just before we wrap up, we're almost at the end, I wanted to ask you, what would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions about doing business in Saudi Arabia, and how would you dispel them?
Well, I think our biggest misconception is that because we weren't open for tourism prior to September of 2019, and again, we praise the king and praise the crown prince, the misconceptions are, is Saudi welcoming? I don't know much about it. Is it deserts? Is it camels? What people don't realize is that it's one of the safest, warmest, welcoming societies in the world. So when people are coming here now, they said, we can't believe the treatment and the welcome we got. We can't believe how beautiful the kingdom is. You know, in the GCC, here's interesting. If you take the 5 GCC countries other than Saudi, they fit into the state of California. You know, geographically, they're small. Saudi Arabia is 5 times the size of California. Diriyah, 14 million square meters, is the size of Beverly Hills, 14 million square meters. So the two misconceptions I had no idea the welcome was going to be as warm, hospitable. I had no idea the country was as beautiful as it is. So now, with His Royal Highness's vision of expanding the two holy cities of Mecca and Medina as the custodian of the two holy mosques, we will be able to welcome not 16 million pilgrimages, but we're building up to 30 million pilgrimages a year. But now, instead of these wonderful people coming from a life fulfillment of a pilgrimage to the two holy cities and leaving, now they have 90 days. They can go anywhere in the kingdom, enjoy the tourism, enjoy the hospitality, enjoy the warm welcome. So right now, Instagram, Snapchat, all the different mediums, everybody that's coming here, I had two this morning where people take pictures and people can't believe it's Saudi Arabia. So our Saudi Tourism Authority are doing a brilliant job, Ministry of Tourism, brilliant job, and we're quickly overcoming those misconceptions of a country that people didn't know.
Well, we really appreciate you speaking to us. You've been extremely generous with your time. Jerry Inzerillo, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Really a lot of fun. Thanks.
Okay, well, also listening in with me was the Chief Investment Officer of the Saudi Arabia holding company, Ali Raza, who's standing by. Ali, I just want to ask you, have you been to Diriyah? And just tell us a bit about the scale of the project.
Absolutely. I mean, to anyone listening in, if you get an opportunity, it's one of the biggest recommendations I can give you for being in Saudi Arabia, let alone in Riyadh. It's absolutely magnificent. I mean, you walk in, especially if you go there in the evenings, walk in through Bujeri Terrace, you walk out, look over a canyon of sorts and see Al Tarif on the other side, which of course is, we could say, the home of Saudi Arabia. The landscape is beautiful. The hospitality is flourishing. I mean, if everything that Jerry just shared with us is any indication, I think it goes without saying that even given that we are in the early stages of the project's development, we've come a long way. It's made strides. It's just an absolutely incredible place to visit.
Yeah, and in terms of its value, I mean, what sort of a value will Diriyah bring, do you think, to Saudi Arabia?
So, look, first of all, we can talk about the economic numbers, the change to the building out of an industry, the number of jobs it will create, and all of the usual discussions. But first and foremost, under the Vision 2030 initiative, it's important to recognize that there is an entire program dedicated to quality of life. And I think that goes to the essence of what's happening here. Diriyah, amongst many other projects like Giga, the entertainment city, like Red Sea, like so many of the things happening around the nation, they are providing significant opportunities for not only the local people, but also the world to come and enjoy everything that the nation has to offer, the heritage, the culture, the landscape, the hospitality, the famous Saudi hospitality that the nation is famous for. So first of all, that's what these projects are creating. That's the significance of Diriyah, number one. Now, on to the second part. Economically speaking, these projects, including Diriyah, are expected to create hundreds of thousands of jobs. They're expected to create, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of economic opportunity for not just the large enterprises, but SMEs. Something very interesting that I observed the first time I went to Diriyah was that you have to purchase a ticket to go to Al Bujeri Terrace in Diriyah, which is a great place to go and dine and enjoy an evening of a conversation and some food. You purchase a ticket. Now, when you arrive at a restaurant, so you book your place at a restaurant, have your meal, and the price of the ticket is credited from the meal. It's such a small observation, such a small consideration, right? But it shows the granularity with which these projects are being developed, the care that's been taken to ensuring that every aspect of the project and the people involved in it experience success. It's not always an easy task to build out an entire hospitality region and to have restaurants that are competing for attention, and people that, of course, would like to see a beautiful place, but just come, perhaps sometimes take photographs and enjoy the landscape. So the leadership has ensured that we're actually feeding the businesses that are helping build this region. And I think that's where the magic is.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Ali. We'll be back with you very shortly with our next segment. Ali Raza, thank you. Now, is Saudi Arabia looking to buy an F1 team? Well, as the kingdom hosts the Grand Prix this weekend in Jeddah, a Saudi official has hinted at that possibility. Well, the chairman of the kingdom's Automobile and Motorcycle Federation, Prince Khalid Al Faisal, has told reporters that there's a lot of interest in owning a team as the motorsport returns to the shores of the Red Sea for its 5th edition. Well, Saudi Arabia first hosted Formula One in 2021 with an energy giant Aramco, a global partner and a title sponsor of the Aston Martin F1 team. Well, the PIF is invested in McLaren and has been since 2021 and has a significant stake in the luxury car maker Aston Martin. So, Ali, I just want to ask you, we're nearly at the end, I just want to ask you what you think. Is Saudi on track, do you think, for an F1 team?
Well, as His Excellency said, why not? I think that was the sentiment. Why not? The reality is Saudi Arabia has made strides in developing a motorsport industry. We've all seen the relationship between Aramco and Ma'aden now with the Aston Martin team, the McLaren involvement, the F1 race. Diriyah Entertainment Park is set to host one of the world's fastest and longest racetracks, F1 racetracks, which hopefully will be open by 2027. So if all of this continues as is, I would concur. Why not? I don't think we can completely rule it out.
Yeah, Ali, I have a feeling we're going to be doing an episode about Formula One at some point in the not so very distant future. And it's not just Formula One, is it? I mean, sports generally are of huge importance to Saudi Arabia moving forward, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, sports, again, going back to my earlier sentiment about the quality of life. First of all, the Saudi population is a very young population. 65% of the population is under the age of 30. And sports is, of course, something to enjoy and socialize over and participate in, but it's seen as a pillar of society. So across the nation, we're seeing the great work of the Saudi Arabian Football Federation, SFA, the Sports for All Federation. There's a large number of entities and initiatives underway to ensure that we have maximum inclusion from as many of the civilians and residents as possible, for there to be relevant funding and incentives available to build enterprise in the industry. Sports is seen as an industry, as a pillar of society, and a contributor to the quality of life of the entire nation. So yes, of course, it's very expansive on the agenda.
All right. Well, thank you very much indeed. Ali Raza, the Chief Investment Officer at the Saudi Arabia Holding Company. Thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Pleasure. Thank you, Tom.
That is all we have time for this edition of The Riyal Deal. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. We'll see you again next week. Do get in touch with me and with Ali Raza via LinkedIn. If you've got any questions or any suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.